Hi, my name's Keith Cooper. In this short video, I'm going to address a question I keep getting asked regularly. Done quite a lot of videos about the selling of prints and the business side of things, but these are a few specific questions I've been asked. One thing I would always say, if you are thinking, I've got prints, artwork, something that I want to sell, make some money on it, nothing wrong, have a go with it. Ask yourself, is your stuff actually wanted? That's one of the hardest questions as a creative person to answer, and honestly. Ask friends, ask them to be honest. Actually, probably ask people you don't know so well. They're likely to less be concerned about saying if they think your stuff is useless. Because irrespective of the work that goes into something, it's quite possible there's no interest in it. So that is one of my commercial pictures. It happens to be a tiny electronic chip, and the chip is so small it is thinner than the raised lettering on a credit card. Now that is an out-and-out commercial photo. It was produced for one of our clients. They've used it for demonstrations at shows and things like that. It was exactly what they wanted. I've sold the image. That's my job as a commercial photographer. Stuff like this, architecture as well. That, I'm going to say, you are going to have a great deal of difficulty, no matter how good this is, technically, whatever tricks you've used to make it. If people aren't interested in it, people aren't interested in it. Postcards. This is the Canon PRO-300. These print perfectly well on this PRO-300, pigment ink based. PRO-200 dye based. Doesn't make a great deal of difference unless you're going for higher end stuff. Now the 300 does have some advantages. I think it produces better black and white prints, but that's from my thinking as a photographer, not as someone looking to sell prints. If I'm looking to sell prints, I'm far more likely to use a machine like you can just see the corner of it here, the big P5000 that I'm testing at the moment. Big printer like that, that's for producing fine art prints. Now, that's not to say you can't produce great prints from something like this. Say you want to print an image like this of this flower. Well, yes, if you want to print it on canvas, you're limited to 13-inch width with this printer. Now, this canvas was printed when I tested the P7500. Big and expensive printer, but it produces prints up to 24-inch width. I would say you need something that size, or at minimum 17-inch, because when you wrap canvases you need to wrap around the edges. But anyway, that's just examples of the sort of printers you can use. Greetings cards, for example, another thing you can do easily on this, the 200 as well. This is a test image I've got specifically for testing papers for use for greetings card. Has fine text on it. It has a picture that's used for testing colour and things like that. So that's printed on one of these, that's printed there, so it's a greetings card. I said this was about business, and if it's about business, it's about the money side of things. Costs. Well, first, the obvious costs. There's your printer. You can save, maybe hunt around, find a good deal on a printer. I would be wary of second-hand printers unless you can see them working and you know the person, the usage they've had. This printer here fired up perfectly well, needed a bit of ink after 6 months of lack of use. But quite often printers, when you see them for sale, may not have been used for a long while. Then you're chancing your arm a bit. If you can see it working and it works okay, there are good bargains to be found in second-hand printers. Obviously, I tend to test the new stuff because I borrow it from the manufacturers to actually do the testing. But if you're doing this, you've got the cost of this. That's fairly easy to work out. Ink costs, well, yeah, small cartridges in a printer like this, they tend to run down relatively quickly compared to a larger printer, such as an ink tank printer. But most of the ink tank printers are not the quality level of this, so it's a bit of a balance. But I've got lots of videos covering all the technical aspects of this. This is more about the business side of things. Cost of paper, well, you can work that out fairly simple. I got this particular paper, quite a lot of cards I got from a local paper supplier here in the UK called Paper Spectrum. They're local as in they're in cycling distance. So they do a lot of these. I've experimented with lots of their cards. Have a look at various reviews and things I've done. You'll find stuff about printing on card and things, and the detail of printing on postcards. One little thing I would say, if you think, oh, I can print postcards, they're fine if all people are going to do and stick them on the wall or put them in an album or something like that. But do not think that cards like this are going to take going through the postal system very well. There is a reason when you buy postcards at the seaside to send to people, they're printed on quite heavy duty card. And that is, to survive going through the postal system. So take care if you're thinking of doing that. Right. Back to actual print costs. This is something that I get asked about a lot and I cannot answer. I'm going to give an answer in a moment, but I cannot answer this properly, because to test the cost I would need to say run 100 prints through a printer like this, identical prints with, well, the amount of ink depends on the image used, so we have to decide what the image I'm going to use for. But so I run 100 prints through this. I weigh the ink cartridges before it, weigh the ink cartridges afterwards. I know the capacity of the ink cartridges. I can do the maths. I can work out an approximate price per square millimetre, square centimetre, square inch, whatever units you want to work in. Now, I don't have the patience or the ink or the paper, mainly the patience, to do things like running off 100 sheets, because you can't just stack 100 sheets in a printer like this. It'll take a few, but you can't stack loads and loads of them. It varies by printer, but you're not, for example, going to be able to stack a load of these in most printers. I think I found one printer that might possibly take a stack, and that's basically an office printer. So that's for that. What about that costs? There's a page, I'll put it in the notes to the video, and it's done by a US paper supplier, Red River, and it's called The True Price of Printing. So Red River have a page that goes through all the details of their methodology and everything like that. And for an 8x10 print, they reckon roughly, and it's all in US currency, so you need to do the conversions. And it depends on how much you're paying for your ink cartridges. But they reckon between 70 and 80 cents per 8x10 print. That's in ink usage. So if you look at the tables there, you can do the calculations and work out roughly what your ink costs are. In a way, the paper, the ink, the depreciation on the printer, so you work out the printer cost and then divide it by however many prints you think you get out of it in its lifetime. The cost for that gives you a cost of media. There are extras you need to include, so you need to allow for the fact that ink will get used up by any printer in cleaning. It's an essential maintenance function of the printer. You're hopefully going to be doing a little bit of testing. Now, even if you do it on different paper and things, you may need to do testing for layout, for cards, to see for checking borders and things like that. You may need to do some testing. So you're going to use up paper and ink in testing and perfecting your images. You also get waste because you almost certainly will make mistakes in doing it, so you waste a bit of media. That reduces as you do more, but those are all sort of quantifiable costs that you can add up. What's the big one I'm missing out here that very few people properly account for? Even some professional photographers I know don't properly work this one out. That's your time. How much effort does it take to produce the work? Well, that's fair enough, that's done. In actual producing prints, let's say you're loading your printing cards for something like this. You find you can perhaps put 2 sheets in. You've got to print off cards and you've got to wait for them to come out. Now, these printers are not lightning quick, so it's going to take a minute or two to print things. You've got to have the time to sit by the printer loading stuff into it as and when it's needed. So you either that time is lost, or you need something else you can do whilst you're actually looking after the printer and feeding it. And here comes the problem that a lot of people don't really think about, is producing the odd one or two prints like this is no trouble whatsoever. I produce a few for Christmas and other times. I do various stuff like that. I do these and great. You know, that's it. People get unique Christmas cards and the like. That's not a business. If I was selling these, I'd need to, one, know that the stuff on them is things that people want, and find somewhere where those people go. Now, I've got lots of stuff about selling artwork and things, so I won't go over all that again. But essentially, you need to produce what you need to, you know, the actual bulk production of things, popping them in envelopes and posting them out to people, supplying stuff, that all costs money as well. You think, what about if I just get my cards sold through a third party? I get my cards sold perhaps through a craft shop or something like that. That's okay. But remember that if you sell your print, your card for £2.50, and you want it to be sold for £2.50 in the craft shop, you've got to allow for the seller's markup. The markup for things in shops like that, gift shops, craft shops and the like, is typically 50 to 100%. So that means that if they sell for £2.50 and there may well be tax on top of that, depends whether, how that works wherever you are, I may well be lucky to get £1 per card. Now, if I get £1 per card, the general feeling is that's pretty good going. There is a natural ceiling for the price for things like this. Have a look at the market you're trying to go into and look what the price is. Don't think of trying to undercut people on price. Trying to go for the lowest price is rarely a good option because you're competing with people with much bigger printers, much more professional setups or printing setups. If you're just doing stuff your own, if you enjoy doing it, good, do it. But don't make the mistake of thinking just because you enjoy it and sell one or two prints that there's a proper business in it. Doesn't mean there isn't, just means there's a lot of considerations you need. Now, hopefully that's of some use. I said the Red River page, I'll put the link in the notes for this video. It's very useful, but do read carefully what they say about how they work out their costs for different printers. So it may not necessarily reflect the actual cost of printing. So for example, a Canon PRO-300, if you use it very sparsely, uses quite a high proportion of ink in maintenance. If you use it regularly, uses a lower proportion. Goes for any printer, but I just mentioned the 1000 as one that I tested a while ago and I noted this. So they have it. Few little ideas of things, the questions I'm asked quite often. I would always say go for it. You know, sell your stuff if you know, but just remember there's a few things you need to think about first. Now, I hope that's useful. If you've got any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching. Oh, please do subscribe to the channel. It is appreciated. Thank you.